All right. Hello, everyone. It is I once again, back with another imperfect pondering. And there are a few things that have been going on in the US, or I guess in general, that I wanted to touch on. Mainly surrounding the whole TikTok ban and something I heard of I knew it was in talks and stuff, but I didn't know there was a decision happening soon. But apparently it's going down this Sunday, and I'm very curious what people's reactions are. I've only seen like on Reddit, and I guess that's it really. And I don't know. I think Reddit is a bubble. There's a lot of things are bubbles, I feel like. So I don't really have a sense of what kind of reaction it's causing publicly for people. But I think it's really interesting and important, and I want to talk on kind of the TikTok ban and also the whole LittleRedBook, or I guess some people are calling it Red Note, but it's called LittleRedBook in China, which is like a Chinese TikTok equivalent. Or it's more like it's like an Instagram. They also have Douyin, which is like, I think, the actual TikTok equivalent, but I don't think American users have access to that. But apparently people have begun to download that app in replacement of TikTok to spite the American government because TikTok is getting banned. So, I don't know, a lot of things to touch on. I think it's really interesting, really funny, and I kind of want to just give my opinion and thoughts on the whole matter. So I guess to start with like the TikTok ban. I don't use TikTok. I never have, thankfully. I think in general, TikTok can be... I've kind of touched on this with my video on like social media and the internet. I feel like TikTok as a platform, a lot of things are very fast-paced, very overstimulating, and at the same time, maybe I'm in a bubble because I haven't actually been on TikTok, and I only see what pops up on Reddit or Instagram or YouTube Shorts and stuff. So I will put that out there. But I feel that in general, I guess my perception of it is that there's a lot of brain rot. Maybe that's too strong of a term, but just like very just dopamine, like quick dopamine type content, like just really engaging or overstimulating, or subtitles and audio and a lot going on. You got your Subway Surfers on the bottom of the screen. And I know a lot of those are memes. I'm not saying that's all content, but I guess in general, I've never really wanted to get on TikTok, mainly because I feel like it could be very addicting, sort of like YouTube Shorts or Instagram Reels or Snapchat Discovery, which I've been pretty addicted to in the past. So I've never been on TikTok. But I do feel like TikTok should be free to use. I feel like, and I guess, I don't know if it's being processed in the Supreme Court right now, or a decision's been made, but it feels very un-American to ban an app. I think the angle that the government takes is sort of like privacy concerns and like spying from the Chinese government and data, blah, 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 all this shit. I don't know if anyone's seen that crazy, Congress hearing where they interviewed the CEO of TikTok, and there's that guy that's literally like so oblivious to like countries outside of the US. He's like, sir, like, are you part of the Communist Party? Have you ever been part of the Communist Party? Like, all these things. The dude is literally Singaporean, Chinese ethnically, has nothing to do with Chinese government, and it's just so embarrassing, man. I feel like so many government officials are just so out of touch, and as someone that I've lived in China for a year, and I've spent more than a year over there, and I'm going to be heading back soon. It's very strange to me. it's hard to figure out the line between like what is like propaganda here in the U.S. To what point are we being fed propaganda? I think more and more people are realizing like mainstream media is corrupt. It's owned by a lot of billionaires and shit, and so there's conflict of interest, and the incentives just aren't quite right. I feel there's not as much. I think it's harder to have integrity and truly have like journalistic integrity when you have other incentives, not wanting to piss off your sponsors, or sometimes even being controlled on what you can release or not. And so I think a lot of people realize that. I think it's really crazy to me, the mismatch between what people think of China and what it's actually like there. It's insane. It's absurd. Which is part of why I like to do vlogs, and I want to kind of make more of an impact and show what it's really like there. Not so people agree with me necessarily, but so people can make their own judgment, because I feel like that's what America was about, or is supposed to be about. What the First Amendment is supposed to be about. For you to be able to be a free, critical thinker, look at the different information, the different perspectives, and come up with your own idea, your own beliefs, right? And I feel like it feels like the ban on TikTok is, it's definitely super political. I don't even think they found any like actual data, like any support for the idea that like the Chinese government's using our data. And it's just it just doesn't make sense. The US government's definitely using our data too, I feel. And I feel like there's also conflict of interest with the ban, in that American companies, social media companies, TikTok or Instagram, like Snapchat, YouTube, they definitely have an interest in having the biggest social media platform banned from the US, because it's a competitor. And I feel like from what I have heard of TikTok and what I have seen is that, a lot of people use their voice. They just kind of do shit like this, I guess, but probably in shorter form. And people just share their thoughts or their experiences or their feelings, or like, I don't know, whatever. And I feel that I talked about this in my other video. I feel that in general, I don't like that it seems like a lot of stuff is kind of like rage bait and like very like, I don't know, just kind of shoved down your throat, like very I'm right, this person's wrong, very black and white, not very nuanced. And I feel like that's kind of the state of media in general. At least that's how it feels online, where it's like Twitter, like, or X. I saw someone call it shitter. Like, the more extreme and like controversial and divisive your take is, like, the more traction you get. Which, I don't know. I really don't like that. And I think, a lot of that has to do with just our human mind and our cognitive evolutionary psychology, like wanting to, I don't know. Humans, like, we're very interested and invested in drama and things that could be a threat to us, to our existence. All sorts of shit, And I think I feel that it's not unique to TikTok. That's on all social medias. But yeah, I think fundamentally I feel that I disagree with the ban. I'm curious how, I think it's only been announced yesterday, so I'm curious how people will talk about it, or what more announcements and stuff there'll be, or public reaction, response. But hopefully you can still hear me okay. I don't know. I just don't think, it seems like a violation of the First Amendment to me. It's a huge platform for people talking and sharing their experiences, and I think one of the greatest benefits or changes that I've seen from people using TikTok is people realizing we're all the same. Like how similar people are, we have similar experiences. And I think the internet and the platform like TikTok really help people realize just how similar we all are. We're all human. And I feel that there's a conflict of interest. I feel that there's a lot of people up at the top that try to divide us and don't want us to realize that we're all the same. Whether that's government, billionaires, corporations, and I try to trust and hope the best of people, and I don't know, I guess everyone's a person at the end of the day, whether you're in the government or a business CEO or whatever. But I feel that when there's that conflict of interest, that's when things get nasty and people start to try and rationalize their actions without realizing, or maybe they're suppressing just how harmful it is to other people. For example, I don't know if the government maybe genuinely thinks this is the best move forward, but I don't know. But it's quite hilarious because a lot of people are jumping onto Chinese apps, a Chinese social media app called Xiaohongshu, which is Little Red Book, which is that Little Red Book does reference a little red booklet that was given to people back in like the Mao Zedong, like early Communist Party days, from what I know. Don't quote me on that. That's the best of my knowledge. But Little Red Book is a social media app. It's like Instagram, but for China. So China has banned a lot of U.S. apps. And so some people say like, oh, it's fair for U.S. to ban Chinese apps. But it's not Chinese. Or I don't know, whatever. But the whole Little Red Book thing, I feel like is really funny because, for one, because I've heard, from what I've been hearing, a lot of like TikTok users are transferring over, making an account, and they're interacting with the Chinese public, which doesn't really happen all that often. And it's been, I thought it was hilarious and really interesting because when I lived in China, I never used it, but it's highly used. A lot of people use it, and it's very popular. But it's funny because apparently people have like been having a lot of interactions with like Chinese people, and Chinese people have been having a lot of interactions with like Americans, and like kind of like on both sides it seems like they're like realizing like, whoa, like you guys are just like us. It's like alien communication is what I've seen it described as, where everyone's like, whoa, like what the heck, you guys have like malls? Like it's, I don't know. It's funny. It's a little sad. It's a little ironic. It's a little funny because I feel that generally. So I feel that in general, a lot of people in the U.S. at least for sure don't really know much about other countries, like at all. I think there's definitely like an American bubble. And I think part of that is geographical. Part of that is, the United States is humongous. But in general, I feel that Americans aren't very well traveled. They don't really know even basic things about other places. But at the same time, I think it's definitely better elsewhere. In other countries, people know a lot about the U.S. And it's really ironic to me because in China, the U.S. is pretty highly regarded among people and like respected. But I feel like here, like, I don't really think Americans have high respect for China, and so, or Chinese people, which I feel like get lumped in with China. And so it's really sad. It feels really unfair. I don't know if it's the result of like I guess there's like a debate of whether it's a result of propaganda, whether it's the government trying to politically incentivized to kind of shit on China or what have you, and keep the American public against China to promote U.S. interests abroad or whatnot. I'm probably on a list from this, honestly. But I wanna speak my truth, man. And honestly, it's true. I feel like Chinese people are done so dirty, man. And the Chinese people have been so welcoming and friendly, and my reception. I think a lot of times Americans think that when they go to China, they're not going to be very well received, but it couldn't be any further from the truth. I've felt way more welcomed and accepted and just treated with kindness and respect in China than I ever have in the U.S. And I mean, that's a whole other thing. I'll probably make a whole video just on that, but it's a little sad that there's such a gap in understanding how similar we are, how similar life is. There's difference culturally, and the government system's a bit different, but I mean, even something as basic as China being like wholeheartedly communist, like a lot of people don't even realize that like China is like pretty capitalist too, in large parts. Like, people go to work, people make their own money, people buy cars, they buy houses, they buy little gadgets, iPhones, whatever, man. Like, it's really not that different. And I feel like some people are realizing that, and it seems radical. And I don't know, it's kind of sad, but it's also a good thing, I feel like. There was a comment I saw on Instagram threads where this person was shitting on, it was someone that lived in China for 7 years, and they were kind of like shitting on Americans, saying that like, oh, like they're not actually interested in cultural exchange or in learning about China, like they just are like using it for clout, and like they don't be fooled, like just super cynical, super pessimistic. It was this person that lived in China 7 years apparently. And I mean, I kind of get where she's coming from. It is frustrating that a lot of Americans are like, I don't know, even like basic knowledge about other places is just absent. But I mean, come on now, like it's a good thing. Like in all respects, I think sure there's going to be some people who are like using it for views or clout or whatever, like they're not actually that interested in Chinese people, and they kind of want to catch the trend or catch the wave. But I don't feel like that's really, I don't know. I mean, I guess that's why I have this series and this channel. Like, that's not the type beat I'm on. That's not the vibe I want to put out there, man. I think it's an awesome thing, and I hope it keeps going. I'm curious what more stories and stuff will come out of it. But really, man, like humans, I've traveled a handful of countries, and I've spent the most time in China out of anywhere, apart from the U.S. And it's a beautiful country, beautiful people, and I think it's really unfair how I think the Chinese people catch the flack and the perception of their government. Just like the U.S. government here, man. Like, we are not, the U.S. government, America is not very well liked in a lot of places of the world. And I don't know, part of that I think is like, I think as humans we like to identify with broader, bigger things. I think a lot of people really get attached to their government, and they want to believe we're the best nation, we're the best this, we're the best that. And I feel like it's kind of like an ego thing. And it's definitely not just American. To some degree, that's 100% human. And I see that, I mean, that happens everywhere, I think, any country. But, I don't know. It's just very strange. I think Americans are, there's definitely, I feel like, some level of propaganda. And I think Americans take a lot of pride in feeling that we're not propagandized. propagated that we're free thinkers, this and that. And probably most are. I think the thing about online and the internet is you hear like the more like loud voices and extreme voices. So I think most people, normal people, they're not raging about it on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, So in real life, it's really important to go out and interact with people, talk with people, stay connected and in tune with reality, because you can definitely get off your rockers if you're just online all the time. But yeah, I feel like it's awesome, and I think it's for the better of humanity, of the world, for people to realize how similar we all are. That's not to say that governments, the Chinese government, I don't know, I don't want to talk too much on governments. I think in general governments are dubious, and I think they often make decisions that really harm people. And I think some people will argue like, oh, like, there's always those people that are like, oh, like, do you condone the Chinese government? Do you condemn the CCP, blah, blah, blah? I don't really see any huge differences between the CCP and the U.S. government. I think both governments do really shitty things. The U.S. government has a horrible track record. And I think we just don't really hear or learn about it when we just are here, like in the U.S., and not hearing those different perspectives. We all experience the world very differently. Sometimes I feel that maybe my experience is so different because I'm Mexican American and I kind of grew up in between both worlds. But yeah, governments suck. People are awesome. Everywhere people are awesome. People are friendly. People are welcoming. Well, I don't know, not so much here, I feel, in the US, but most people though, everywhere, even in the US. I think I've had negative experiences here in the US a lot, so sometimes I like to joke and banter, but in all honesty, yeah, I think people are people everywhere, man. And I think it's awesome that people are realizing that, and we need more of that. Get that class consciousness, that's one thing, but get that entire human race consciousness going too. We're all the freaking same, man. We're all the same. Alright, let's see if I missed anything. LittleRedBook, TikTok ban, Chinese people. Nah, I think that's about it that I wanted to touch on for this one. We'll see if anyone even watches this, but it doesn't really matter because I've done my part. I can't control that, but I can control what I do, and I feel good about doing this and talking about what I want to talk about, speaking my truth, speaking my honest thoughts. That's a win. That's a big dub already for me. So let's freaking go. But if anyone did watch, talking to you right there, thank you, and see you around. Peace.